What's up guys, my name is Ace, and welcome back to another gun guide. This is the series where I go into great detail with all of the stats as well as some excellent attachment combinations for every gun in Modern Warfare 2. And in today's video, we're going to be moving on to the PDSW 528, also known as the P90. And starting it off as always, let's have a look at our damage profile, and this gun is a bit of a pea shooter. We don't deal a whole lot of damage, and this is generally going to be a 4 to 7 shot kill, although it can be an 8 shot kill with limb shots at really long ranges as well. It's also worth noting for the first 2 damage ranges, we have to hit every single bullet to the torso in order to maintain those shots to kill. Just mixing one limb shot in will add an additional shot to kill, unless you're also hitting headshots to help compensate for that. And speaking of headshots I would say are moderately useful with the PDSW, especially due to that fact that I just pointed out there. Mixing a headshot in, while it might not reduce the potential shots to kill, it may just ensure more consistency with reaching that 4-shot kill up close, or the 5-shot kill in the second damage range. And as a result, with this particular gun, I definitely consider headshots to be more useful than most of the other SMGs out there. After that though, let's have a look at our rate of fire, which is 909 rounds per minute, and that is very fast. And what this means for our time to kill potential is if we can get that 4-shot kill, we're going to be killing in 198 milliseconds, and that is a competitive time to kill. It's not an amazing time to kill, it's just a competitive time to kill in this game. And then of course, as our range increases, our time to kill increases, but it's worth noting, even at really long ranges, at 396 milliseconds to kill, that's actually not bad at all for an SMG, and as a result, if you can hit your shots, this is somewhat competitive with assault rifles at those mid to longer ranges. This is further supported by the fact that this has a ridiculous bullet velocity at 680 meters per second, exactly the same as the FSS Hurricane, and that's faster than every one of the assault rifles in the game. So this gun will feel like Hitscan at range, you just have to be able to hit your shots, which it is going to be a bit harder than most of the assault rifles just due to the recoil, which we'll have a look at in a little bit. Before we get into that though, let's have a look at our ranges, and we've actually got a great 4-shot kill potential with this gun at 14 meters. This is a very solid maximum damage range for an SMG. However, when it comes to the other range drop-offs, these are fairly standard for SMGs, so it's only really a standout when it comes to that maximum damage range. Next up, let's have a look at our hipfire, and as we can see here, it's pretty standard for an SMG, no surprises there. And then let's take a look at our idle sway, and this gun definitely has some idle sway. It could hold you back at range a bit. More importantly though, I wanted to point out the iron sights on this can be quite obstructive. You can see it's pretty much blocking that entire target at range, so that is one potential downside to consider with this gun. Next, let's get into recoil, and once again, I just did a 30-round recoil plot here, even though we have a 50-round magazine. That's just so you can have more of an apples-to-apples comparison with recoil compared to the other guns in the game. And the PDSW doesn't lean too hard either left or right. Instead, it just kind of zigzags its way upward a little bit, and you will definitely have to correct for that to some degree in real time. So I wouldn't consider this to be a particularly accurate or easy to control gun at range. However, it is doable. This isn't like completely uncontrollable by any means. But next up, let's get into our handling stats, and our aim down sight speed is unfortunately pretty slow for an SMG at 260 milliseconds. This is the second slowest in the SMG category. The only one that's slower is the Mini Bach. However, at least our sprint to fire time is standard for SMGs at 110 milliseconds. And then let's have a look at our reload add time. And unfortunately, this is quite slow as well at 2.1 seconds. So you will have to pay attention and leave that little bit of extra time for reloads in game. After that though, let's cover our mobility stats, and for all of them, they're within the realm of average. However, our base movement speed and our sprint speed are slightly below average, whereas our aim walking movement speed is a little bit above average. And with that, that wraps it up for the base stats of this gun without any attachments. Now let's cover the barrel attachments, and we'll start it off with ranges. And we've got a lot of barrels with this gun, and only one of them decreases our ranges. That's a 9.5-inch Duke 30 barrel, whereas all of the other ones that do change our ranges will increase our range value. And the one big standout here is the 17.5-inch Corvus Pro range barrel. This one gives us a 32% boost to our ranges, and that's not very common for SMGs at least. That's a huge range bonus for an SMG. So if you are going for a longer range build, that may be one that you want to consider. Now, when it comes to the recoil with these barrels, once again, that 17.5-inch Corvus barrel, that one is a standout here. It does reduce the magnitude of recoil by a pretty decent margin. And also, both of those cloak barrels noticeably reduce our magnitude of recoil as well, which is nice, whereas all the other barrels are fairly comparable to the base, no large differences there by any means. And finally, for the important stats of these barrels, let's have a look at how they impact our aim down sight speeds. And unfortunately, there's only one barrel that improves our aim down sight speed. That's that 9.5-inch Duke barrel, and this is hardly even noticeable. It's only about 10 milliseconds. And that does kind of suck because all of the other ones will hurt our aim down sight speed, some of them by a very large margin, like that 17-inch Corvus Pro range barrel, which has those great benefits to our range as well as recoil. This destroys our aim down sight speed, and this is more like an LMG now when it comes to our aim down sight time, which is very unfortunate. So there we go, those are the barrel attachments. However, there is one other section of attachments that I wanted to cover since it is quite unique to this gun, and that is the rail section. And with this, the first one is the integrated reflex rail. And with this, we get a precision sight picture. This is what it looks like. Honestly, it's not the best looking reflex sight out there. Like the Slimline Pro would look far better. However, this also boosts our movement speed a little bit, and it doesn't hurt our aim down sight speed, unlike all of the other optic attachments in the game. So if you are looking for something that's at least a little bit cleaner than the iron sights without hurting your aim down sight speed, this is not a bad choice. As for the other rail though, this is the GR33 light rail. This one still gives us iron sights, and honestly it's about the same toward the center at least as the base iron sights on this gun. It's just that the rail has a slightly different shape. You could argue that it's slightly less obstructive than the base iron sights, but honestly not by a very large degree. However, you might have noticed with both of these rails, they do hurt our recoil control. So let's just have a quick look at a comparison here. And when it comes to that integrated reflex rail, that first one we talked about, it honestly barely hurts our recoil. So I do think it is a great choice because of that. Whereas that GR33 light rail, it does very noticeably increase the magnitude of recoil. And I don't think there's nearly enough upsides with that to even consider adding this much recoil. And with that, that finally wraps it up for all of the important stats that I wanted to cover. Now let's move into some excellent attachment combinations I've got for you guys. And the first one is what I like to call my all-around strafing build. So with this, you'll notice I have actually tuned some things. I don't normally tune things for this series, but since no matter how we shake it, our aim down sight speed's kind of gonna suck with this gun, I really wanted to lean heavily into aim walking movement speed. So as a result, we're using the hollow extended stock, and we've got it maxed out in the direction of aim walking speed for our tuning. And that gives us an incredible aim walking movement speed for this game, at least at 3.87 meters per second. So this is best suited for strafing around corners and strafing in the middle of gunfights to dodge shots. And that's where this gun really excels. However, we also get a great sprint out time and excellent sprint speed as well, so you can get to positions a lot faster than many other players out there. And also our recoil is very solid and manageable within those close to mid-range fights. You should have no problems there. And the only real big downside with this is the fact that our aim down sight speed is 300 milliseconds, which is quite slow for an SMG, but it's at least within the realm of being somewhat manageable. I guess it's also worth mentioning, I used a different laser than what I would normally use here. I'm using the 1 milliwatt Artemis laser, and that's because the beam for this one isn't visible to enemies while aiming down sights, and since we are going to be pre-aiming and strafing around corners, we definitely don't want that downside. So there we go, that's the first build that I've got, and I really do enjoy this build. It's actually one of my favorite all-around PDSW builds to use. Next up, let's get into what I like to call the Little LMG build. So with this one, we've got a painfully slow aim down sight speed at 390 milliseconds. However, we're definitely not treating this gun like an SMG anymore. We're leaning really heavily into range with that 17-inch Corvus Pro range barrel, so we get a really nice boost to our damage range at 32%. We've got the VLK laser 7 milliwatts to help with our aim down sight speed and aiming stability and sprint out speed. We got the Slimline Pro optic on there, the CQB stock, as well as the Bruin 0900 grip. And with all of that combined, we get a pretty good recoil pattern here. We've got an amazing bullet velocity, so challenging people at range is no problem. In fact, you are going to be outgunning a lot of assault rifles out there at longer ranges, which is great. We've got an excellent magazine capacity, of course, because we are using the PDSW here, and that's why it does feel kind of like a mini LMG. Obviously, with this one, you're not going to be rushing around the map or anything. You're more so going to be locking down lanes, locking down angles, and picking people off that way. And if you treat it like that, you can actually find some decent success with this build, and it's also great for going for those long shot camos. And with that, that's going to wrap it up today's gun guide on the PDSW. As for my thoughts on this gun, It's a little bit strange. If I'm looking for an SMG, I don't really love this particular gun, but if I treat it a bit more like an SMG assault rifle hybrid, I tend to find some more success there. And I'm not saying this is a bad gun by any means, it's just kind of in a strange place where it's good in some areas and bad in others, and some of those are sort of contradictory, so it's just a strange SMG in that way, but I still do enjoy using it for what it is. Now, of course, those are just my thoughts, and I'd love to hear what you guys think about this gun in those comments down below. And if you guys have missed any of the previous episodes of Gun Guides, I will, of course, leave a link in the description of the video to the playlist for the series. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.